What's going on, everybody? Today is June 28th, 2022. It is a Tuesday. We're doing our weekly Tuesday Instagram Live. This topic came from a question from somebody posted in the private Facebook group, and you'll hear it everywhere. It's rather ubiquitous. But it's basically, let's say that you've got a workout, and the workout has 400-meter runs in the workout, and you're not going to run. Instead of running, you're going to either row or you're going to pedal on an echo bike, an assault bike, a Concept 2 bike erg. Maybe you're going to do a ski erg. Maybe you're going to just do some piece of gear that's an oddball piece of gear and nobody's ever heard of. How do you know what you should do, how far you should go, how many calories or meters? Is it all perfectly fair? Is the world a perfectly fair, just place on all these different pieces of engine building or cardio building gear? So let's dive right in. We're specifically going to focus on the bikes, Echo Bike, Assault Bike, and the Concept 2 bike erg, because that's largely where this question came from. And it came from the other day when we had some foot sprints that occurred, and then there were options to do it if you weren't going to do it as a foot sprint, biking, rowing, things like that. And the option for biking that day was a certain number of intervals of 20 seconds of work and 40 seconds of rest. Done until you basically wanted to jump off a cliff. And of course, based upon the bike that if you weren't running, based upon the bike that you used, if all things were the same, if you had an exact replica of yourself and one of your clones did that workout on the Echo Bike, the other on the Assault Bike, and the other on the Concept 2 bike erg, the question is, at the same quote-unquote effort level, would all of those clones accumulate a different amount of calories? And the simple answer is yes, they absolutely would. The other part is, it doesn't really matter as much as it may seem that it does. Now, I know that it could get a gasp from the audience. Pat doesn't understand measurable, observable, repeatable data. Why am I even tracking anything? The sky just fell. Let's pump the brakes for a second, step back in the big picture and kind of talk about why that statement right there might actually be valid. First of all, let me say that I had an assault bike for probably 5 years. Anytime I wasn't going to run, I was on the assault bike, modifying things as needed. Anything which was bike specific, I obviously did on the assault bike. And that entire time, based upon what I do for a living and what I'm passionate about with programming, tracking the various metrics of, understanding the effort level, the time domain, what it would usually take me to do a 400-meter run, either in like a 6x400-meter standalone sprint workout. Is that a 400-meter at the sort of pace that I would run in like a Helen or Nancy kind of a thing? And then what would that time domain, effort, amount of meters or calories look like on the assault bike to best replicate it as closely as possible? Played that same game, of course, with the Concept 2 rower, and just, polishing data, trying to get it as useful as possible. Then I got the Concept 2 bike erg. I've probably had that for a couple of years now and started playing with that in conjunction with the running, in conjunction with the assault bike, doing that same thing, mixing into workouts, sprints, mixed modality, the whole 9 yards. What's the meters? What's the watts? What's the RPMs? What's the, blah, 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 all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, it's different, and that's why if you're doing a workout that maybe it's a certain number of calories, it might be a different number of calories that you would use on something like a Concept 2 bike erg compared to a assault bike, because given the same relative effort level that you're putting into the bike, those two machines will just accumulate a different number of calories. And so we play with that a bit. Then I offloaded the assault bike, and maybe a bit over a year ago got a Rogue Echo bike in the garage. fantastic piece of kit, right? Could survive a nuclear war. And started doing everything I just mentioned, but now doing it with the Echo Bike mixed in. And the assault bike, I sold the assault bike. And you know, what you'll hear all the time is people who maybe are just comparing the assault bike and the Echo Bike. They're like, it's not fair. You know, if it's 20 calories in the assault bike, it's tougher to get 20 calories in the Echo Bike. It's not fair. It's a little bit harder, etc., etc. And my initial impression of that was also, yeah, the Echo Bike's a bit tougher. Whoop-de-doo. And not to be callous or dismissive, but yeah, it's a bit more challenging to accumulate calories on the Echo Bike, and that's the end of the story. But not so horrifically, significantly, orders of magnitude different that if you're doing a workout with Echo Bike and assault bike, and it was programmed for multiple rounds, 20 calories on the bike, whether I was making my way to an assault bike or an Echo Bike, I wouldn't shift those 20 calories. Maybe it takes me a small percentage of time longer to accumulate them on the Echo Bike, but not so much so that anything in my world has changed in any sort of meaningful or dramatic way. If I'm making my way to a Concept 2 bike erg, yeah, I'm going to probably modify those calories and increase them a little bit. Now, the only time, again, they're close enough for government work, the Echo Bike and the assault bike with regards to calories, meters, things like that. The only time that it could just be nettlesome or a little bit annoying is if you are comparing what you did on maybe like a sprint day or something like that to somebody else. So if we go back to the other day where it was 20 seconds of work, 40 seconds of rest for a certain number of intervals, you did it on the assault bike, somebody else did it on the Echo Bike. At the end of the day, you can't really compare those two scores because, yeah, they're close, but they are just a bit different. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, it's a different piece of gear. So you'd have to compare what you did to somebody else on the exact same piece of gear as you. But then there's also other things that come into play that nobody takes into account, right? What if you're on the exact same bike as somebody else? Both of you are on an Echo Bike, okay? Or an assault bike. Pick your poison. And you're both pedaling your tails off for 20 seconds, 40 seconds of rest. And at the end of it, you look at some scores on the whiteboard, you're like, man, so-and-so just got so many more calories than I did. They're on the same bike as me, or different bike, whatever it happens to be. And then come to find out that they're also 6 inches taller than you and 50 pounds heavier than you. Well, yeah, that's gonna be far more significant than what bike they were on, quite frankly. So my point is, there's a whole bunch of factors that go into this. But if you, at the end of the day, that's why we always say, and this is very true, it is just you versus you. So if you're doing that 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off workout, this is why I said it doesn't matter what bike you're doing it on, because for that, you're just trying to accumulate however many calories you can in that 20 seconds. So as long as you put your effort into it, you wrote down what your score was, and then if that same workout comes up, let's say 3 months later, you walk back into your same garage and you get on the same bike again, you have a measurable, observable, repeatable metric for you to gauge your performance now versus how your performance was then. That's what matters. That's why I say it doesn't matter that you look at the scoreboard and the scores are all over the place, everyone uses a different bike. It doesn't matter. You go back into your garage, you get on the same piece of kit, you do the workout again. That's the data that truly matters. And so that's why there's a difference between working out, in which you use the gear that you got, and like a hardcore competition where everyone has to be on precisely exactly the same playing field, and so that every score can be measured against each score. That's why in the non-competitive world, as recreational CrossFitters, it's fun to look at other people's numbers, it's fun to look at other people's metrics, but you can only sweat them so much because you just don't know a whole bunch of other factors. I mean, even with something, I'm already off base. This is what I do professionally, is go down rabbit holes. I had somewhat of a of a progression that made sense for this discussion. I'm already off track. The same thing would happen with just, take bikes out of the equation, which it's just so easy to be like, well, it's a different bike. What about a 6x400 meter repeat day, and everyone all around the world goes out and does it on foot, runs, right? And let's say everyone actually runs 400 meters, like they used a measuring wheel. And so it was truly everyone ran 400 meters. Can you compare all the times and say that so-and-so did better or worse than me? Or is it a totally level playing field, perfectly the same? Well, if it's you and one person standing next to you that ran the exact same course, then the answer is yes. If you're looking at a whiteboard from people all around the world, well, the answer is no. Did you do those 6x400 meter repeats on a beautiful, perfect temperature day in flat terrain in the middle of Kansas in the United States? Or did you do it in Quito, Ecuador at over 10,000 feet of elevation? Both were 400 meters. Both were 6x400 meter repeats. Both people rested 2 to 3 minutes between each sprint. There's absolutely nothing the same about those two efforts in any way, shape, or form. Or is it, and if both were flat and not at elevation, well, summertime in Kansas is wintertime in Australia. That's going to play a little bit of a difference. What's the temperature going on out there? Is it pleasant? Is it miserably humid? Was there a wind? I mean, just, again, that's why it's great to look at numbers. It's fun. You can compare, but you can only worry about it so much unless what you're comparing yourself to is precisely the same, 100% the same. Geographical conditions, exact same piece of equipment, the whole 9 yards. We can go even further. Let's say that you live in flat Kansas and it's a beautiful day and you do your 6x400 meter repeats and you see a score, and again, you used a measuring wheel, and you see a score from somebody else that you've never met who also lives in Kansas. So they're in the same place on the earth, the same season of the year, the same beautiful temperature, but you didn't run it with them. Even though Kansas isn't very mountainous, there are certainly slight elevation or slight increase in grade or decrease in grade, slight up or slight down of runs. Or was it perfectly flat? Did you have a straight 400 meters or did you have an out and back that you had to stop and turn around? All of that matters. I mean, the difference between going in a straight line versus having to go out and back and that start and stop and deceleration, receleration, I mean, that's a huge deal right there. All of these things matter. So yes, everybody posted a time for 6x400 meter repeats, but it's not the same. It's fun to look at, but it is at the end of the day, you versus you. And your effort matters, and tracking your data matters so that you can gauge yourself on what is measurable, observable, and repeatable. And all of these other things, such as calorie conversion. So, a simple calorie conversion, to get back to what I was supposed to be talking about initially, if it's 10 calories on the Echo bike, let's say, or 10 calories on an air bike per round, a general calorie conversion that we'll use for like the Concept 2 bike erg is to take the calories and multiply it by 1.4. Okay? Now, a team of NASA scientists did not have $500 million worth of research money to come up with the 1.4. That 1.4 was come up with, as I mentioned previously, over the course of years and months and tracking data. Like, I even went out into the garage this morning, just reconfirmed a whole bunch of things as to what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And the 1.4 is a relatively universal multiplier that will get you pleasantly close enough to have a very similar stimulus to what you would have had on a Rogue Echo bike or even an assault bike. So if it's 10 calories per round on a Rogue Echo bike, and if you're using an assault bike, you can just still use the 10 calories per round. Yeah, is it going to feel a little more challenging to get the 10 calories per round on the Rogue Echo bike? It will. But again, not so horrifically so that it changes the entire game of the workout, but it's a bit more difficult. But that's okay, because it's just you versus you. If you're using the Concept 2 bike erg, we would ask you to multiply that by 1.4. So instead of doing 10 calories per round, you would do 14 calories per round. And is it exactly the same? No. And it never will be. Because that's why one's the Rogue Echo bike and one's the Concept 2 bike erg. They're two different bikes. They even just feel different. One uses your arms, one doesn't use your arms. The resistance on the pedals, just everything about it feels different. It hits your body a little bit different. It's just different. So I think trying to compare it to the nth degree and sweating that so much, I think you could potentially drive yourself crazy for what is there's no return on your investment right there. So if you see calories, they're generally for a Rogue Echo bike or an assault bike, and you can just use the calories as is. If you're climbing onto a Concept 2 bike erg, I would take those calories and multiply them by 1.4, and fitness will be achieved. You'll be fantastic. So getting back on track, climbing out of the rabbit hole that I just put myself in, let's see. So let's take what's very common in CrossFit, the 400-meter run. See it all the times, and it's in workouts. And let's say that it's just torrential downpours, or it's hail where you are, there's 2 feet of snow on the ground. So instead of going out for a 400-meter run, you're going to hop on your trusty bike. If it's your Echo bike or your assault bike, what we would recommend is you could do one of two things. You could either replace that 400-meter run with 1,200 meters on the assault bike or Echo bike, or 24 calories. That would be 24 calories for men. For the women, I would just take 0.7 of that. My brain is not working at this second, but let's see. 24 times 0.7. 16.8. So 16, 17 calories, you're good to go. So you could do that. If the question comes up, how do I change my Echo bike monitor or my assault bike monitor to read in meters? If you just type into Google that exact question or phrase, the instructions will pop up, and it's pretty darn simple to do that. And then you can pedal and you're good to go. So if somebody is doing a multiple round workout, there's 400-meter runs per workout. Let's just say on average, an athlete is going to cover that 400-meter run in about 2 minutes. That's about an 8-minute per mile pace, right? Now there could be plenty of people watching this that's like, don't you know how fast I am? I'm going to do that in 1:45 each time. And there's, trust me on this, plenty of other people that would say, I would love to run 2 minutes per 400 meter. That would be an amazing PR. I'm going to be 2:15 per 400, 2:30 per 400, maybe a bit more. But as a general metric, just most cases, most of the time, assuming like a 2 minute per 400, that's what we'll use. That would be substituted very nicely with 1,200 meters on the Echo bike or assault bike, or accumulating about 24 calories. And that, I went out and did it just before this video, and if I pedal the Echo bike at 60 RPMs, and I don't think they say RPMs on the Echo bike, I think they say cadence or something, I could be wrong, but if you pedal at 60 RPMs for 2 minutes, I came in basically right at 1,200 meters and 24 calories. So that's a really good thing just to substitute for that. And again, you could do the same thing on an assault bike. You'll be good to go. I also went out there and did it on the Concept 2 bike erg, just to illustrate why things are a bit different on the Concept 2 bike erg. So that example that I just gave was 2 minutes on the Echo bike at 60 RPMs. I then hopped onto the Concept 2 bike erg, pedaled for 2 minutes at 60 RPMs on that bike as well. On the Echo bike, I accumulated 1,200 meters at 60 RPMs in 2 minutes. On the Concept 2 bike erg, same RPMs, same time domain, I did not get 1,200 meters. I got 975. It's a relatively significant difference, right? On the Echo Bike, in the previously mentioned example, I accumulated 24 calories. On the Concept 2 Bike Erg, same RPM, same time domain, I accumulated 30 calories. So I got 6 more calories in a 2-minute window. So it accumulated calories faster. And I will also tell you that pedaling for 2 minutes on the Echo Bike at 60 RPMs feels much more challenging than pedaling at the exact same RPM for 2 minutes on the Concept 2 Bike Erg. So the Concept 2 Bike Erg feels a bit easier, feels like it requires less effort, yet accumulates more calories in the same period of time, even though it didn't accumulate the same distance. That's why if we're talking about calories, we're going to give something like a 1.4 calorie multiplier to help that out. For something like the Concept 2 Bike Erg to come a little bit closer to what a 400-meter run would be in a workout, or what 2 minutes of pedaling the Echo Bike at 60 RPMs would be, 2 minutes on the Concept 2 Bike Erg, bumping up the RPMs from 60 to 65, I feel more closely resembles what that 400-meter run would be in a workout or the effort on the Echo Bike. So when I climbed onto the Concept 2 Bike Erg, I pedaled for 2 minutes, but I increased my RPMs to 65. I accumulated 1,050 meters, which is, we're getting in the neighborhood of 1,200 there, right? That would happen pretty quick. And I got 35 calories, still in that 2-minute window. So that's significant. That's why we give that calorie bump. So that's why a 1.4 makes a lot of sense. But if you didn't do the calories and you just went by the meters, that would also treat you very well. And again, not perfectly NASA launch a shuttle into orbit precise, but close enough for government work, 100% close enough for fitness. They're different bikes. One uses your arm, one doesn't. The fans are different on the two. They accumulate calories different. They suck your energy more or less depending upon which bike that you're on. And so that's why if you're going by the calories, the 1.4 multiplier works great. But if you also were just saying, oh, this has a 400-meter run per round, I'm going to bike. It's going to be 1,200 meters on the bike, accumulating 1,200 meters on the Rogue Echo Bike, or 1,200 meters on the Assault Bike, or 1,200 meters on the Concept 2 Bike Erg will all work just fine. So the meters are pretty darn consistent. The calories tend to vary a bit wildly. And you're going to have to pedal a bit faster on the Concept 2 Bike Erg, a higher RPM rate anyway, to get to that 1,200 meters in the same time domain that you would on the Rogue Echo Bike. But that feels appropriate because you having to push yourself a bit more RPM-wise on the Concept 2 Bike Erg feels like the same effort at a lower RPM on the Rogue Echo Bike. That was a lot of words. I hope that made sense to everybody. I could recap it very briefly. The calorie conversions, that we provide with any workout on the Linchpin private track. So if there's a run program, we say, hey, if you're going to row, if you're going to ski erg, if you're going to hop on a bike, here are the calorie conversions for that. Here are the distance conversions for that. All of those distance conversions, they're all a very close approximation of the stimulus, the effort level, the time domain, all of that good stuff, based upon years of experimentation, years of tracking data, years of writing things down and seeing where things actually shake out. But no two are precisely the same, because just look at the human machine running musculature that's used compared to musculature that's used on an Echo Bike compared to the Concept 2 Bike Erg. And one being running, you fully support your weight as well, by the way, which is a huge difference. You're sitting down on the other two bikes, so they're all a bit different. They all have their idiosyncrasies, but there is a chart, a formula, and a way to make it really darn close. Close enough that you can put whatever one you want in to whatever workout that you're doing, and life will be fantastic. And any time that we post a workout, like I said, and you're in the BTWB app, I think it's under extra instructions or notes if you tap on the under the workout in the app, It'll give you the calorie conversion charts, distance conversion charts, and all that good stuff. And that's also why, recapping why it is you versus you. Because if you go out and run, just because somebody else ran, it doesn't mean their course is anything similar to yours, that the weather is anything similar to yours, that the grade is anything similar to yours. If you do it on an assault bike, somebody else does it on an eco bike, and somebody else does it on a Concept 2 bike erg, you're all going to be kind of close, but you're all going to be a little bit different. And so it's fun to look at the scores, but it really is you versus you at the end of the day. Let me make sure that I didn't miss anything. Oh, okay, this might be helpful. Let's say that you've got some oddball piece of gear, just a rare piece of gear, an odd rower, or you get a bike off of Craigslist that's a Schwinn from 1971 or something like that, and the monitor's broken, you're just trying to figure out how it is. You're probably what would serve you best is doing a little bit of experimentation, especially if you're familiar with rowing for 2 minutes, 500-meter row or something like that. What a 400-meter run feels like to you in Nancy or Helen or something like that. Getting onto your bike that you got off Craigslist or whatever it is and seeing RPMs or whatever you can measure in some sort of a way, because maybe like the calories are totally different. Find the effort level at the RPM or the meters or the calories or whatever it is for that 2-minute window that best feels to you how you feel when you either row a 500 in a multi-round workout or do a 400-meter run in a multi-round workout. And all of that will be, since you are comparing yourself to yourself, that will work wonderfully for you until you either get a new monitor or something else. So, I hope that helps. I hope that's helpful. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll talk later.